Goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're joining us on our Zoom live audience. And we also have this streaming on Facebook and Instagram, as well as our guest Facebook page, Jenn Kennedy, who is our guest today. So I want to first tell you a story before we start our GGTV, which is our Grateful Goddess TV. I want to tell you that I'm in a hotel room right now in Florida, and I came prepared with my travel mug, the little mini mug, do more of what makes you happy, because we always have our mug of beverage of choice, and my little mini logo. So I have my little travel utensils here, but I have to tell you this story. I'm in this hotel room, and I'm staying here with my husband, and he went home the other night. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm here with my daughter, and we went to bed early, and I'm lying there in bed and fall asleep, and I'm in this deep sleep. And about an hour later, I hear boom, oh, and I'm like, what the hell? What is going on here? And I wake up and I'm like, oh crap. Obviously, it's a couple right on the other end of the wall, and they're having fun. And I thought, okay, put my earbuds in. It'll be over in 5 minutes? Well, it went on and on and on. And literally an hour later, I took my earbuds out. It was still going on. I'm like, okay. And I'm lying there like this. And I'm like, come on, hurry up, finish already. And no joke, it was quiet for about half an hour. I fell asleep and then it started up again. And then this time it was like, I heard it was like a striptease going on. And it was like, all of these words were, hey, baby, and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, you get the picture, right? This went on for hours. And I'm like, oh my God. So the other day I called our guest, Jenn Kennedy, in preparation for tonight's GGTV. And I told her about this. And I was like, I cannot believe this happened. This happened like right before that we're going to do our GGTV together. And what I love is she said to me, as every great therapist does, how did you feel about that? And I said, well, at first I thought, what the hell? And then I thought, okay, let them have their fun and it's normal. And then I thought, wait, is this normal? And then I was a little jealous. And then I was a little like, wait a second. So there were lots of emotions that went on. And so it got me thinking just in general about what's normal, what's not normal, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight with Jenn. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about her because I am here in a hotel. I didn't have access to a printer, so I just want to read you from my phone her bio. She's a certified sex therapist and sex addiction therapist based in the Santa Barbara area. In her private practice, she specializes in sex and gender, which translates to sex therapy, both for individuals and couples, sex addiction, compulsion, issues with porn, infidelity, prostitution, and LGBT. She's a certified sex addiction therapist, trained in EMDR, and she works in a variety of modalities. She is currently finishing a PhD in clinical sexology. What is that? Well, we're going to talk about that. Welcome, Jenn, to GGTV.
Hey, thank you.
So, Jenn,
great to be here.
When I told you that story, what was going on in your mind?
Well, the first thing I thought of course, like that's the number one place that people will almost always have sex. If they're not having sex at home, or certainly if they are having sex at home, is a hotel, right? You got housekeeping daily, like you got nice sheets, like you don't usually have the kids there. Like, yeah, everybody's having sex in hotels.
But the walls are so thin.
Well, you might need to upgrade.
Right.
I don't know.
So, but I have a question. What was going on in my mind is like, what's normal? I know that word. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. I think that question gets asked a lot by men and women. Normal in terms of frequency. I mean, you said duration, right? Like, is long sex normal? Is loud sex normal? Is hotel sex normal? And the answer is yes, it's all normal. mean, there's just a range of, what people do and don't do and how long they do it. Yeah.
And on our interview that was recorded that we did last year, we talked with you about gender and seeing people where they are and not what we expect them to be. So I do want to cue into our viewers tonight or listeners that they can tune into that on Grateful Goddesses. You go to gratefulgoddesses.com and you can listen to that interview. Tonight, though, we're going to focus on sensuality, sexual pleasure, kind of the underlying layers to it, not just, having good lube and a good hotel room, but what is it that causes us to want sex more or less? And how do we get to that place of comfort? Okay. So first of all, though, I have to ask you, what is a sexologist?
Yeah. So it's the degree I'm doing is all about human sexuality. So it includes the range certainly of sex therapy. My specialization is sex addiction. We also look at gender and the whole range of presentations. We look at sexual assault. We look at everything to do with the experience of sex, from the biological to, and of course, it's all through the clinical lens. So sitting with people of, various presentations and presenting issues that have that sort of link to sexuality, because it really does. I mean, we're all human, right? So there's just a range of things that come up throughout the lifespan. So being prepared to have that walk in the door in a bunch of different presentations.
And again, I wanted to just tell our audience that for you to be part of this live audience, you can go to Pulver, P as in Peter, U-L, V as in Victor, E-R, that's how I always spell my last name, pulver.com, and get free tickets to GGTV for tonight if you want to be part, because we are going to do some activities with you a little later on and go into some breakout rooms, which of course will be not recorded. And it gives you a nice opportunity to not just learn the lessons from you and everything that you're going to teach us, but actually practice some of these things. So I'm really excited for that. So please tune in. If you're not joining us in the live audience, please, if you'd like to join us now, it's not too late. You can. Okay, so we were talking about feeling good sexually. What are some ways that, let's just say, women can feel good sexually?
Well, that's a wide open question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and the exercise that we're going to get into, I think, will help sort of help you determine what that means for you, because there's a whole range depending on, are we talking about solo sex? Are we talking about partnered sex? I think a lot of women start with solo sex and then that's sort of sprinkled throughout their life. And some people don't do that at all. But in terms of, sometimes you want slow, passionate sex, and sometimes you want a quickie. There's all different types that are all good. I would say in my, when I wear my sex therapist hat, it's whatever works for you. And, I'm really open to definition and to cultivating that for the individual of like what makes you happy and what feels good to you.
And again, yes, when we get to the activities, that's the thing. Like we'll go more into the layers of that to help everyone to feel more sensual and to understand how they can if they're not feeling that way. Can we talk just for a minute about some myths, sexual myths?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, I heard from another guest that joined us, and just I've read it and seen it in many, many places, many different resources, that men think about sex, I think it's every 7 minutes, and women maybe twice a day, something like that. Have you heard something in that regard?
I don't know the exact stats, but every 7 minutes, that actually, gosh, if you divide a day up, that actually sounds about right. I mean, I see a lot of clients, and every client, not every client, but most clients that I do see, it's around the conversation of sex. So maybe, it's a biased audience, but it just comes and goes. It comes and goes in these flashes of when you interact with people. The specific thing that person brings out in you, but also just sort of, and that's what I love so much about Emily Nagoski's book is what we're going to work with tonight. It's called Come As You Are. And she really talks about how important context is. Like, so what are all the primers for that bring you into the space of feeling kind of turned on or drawn or curious about that realm? So it's really contingent on so many factors and the individual.
And also that women can have an orgasm through intercourse, which, by the way, I want to just actually do a little disclaimer, which I forgot to do at the beginning. We are going to use anatomical names. We're not going to say vajayjay and pee-pee and all that. We're going to say vagina, penis, clitoris, etc., etc. Okay, right? That's out there. What about the myth that, can women orgasm solely through intercourse?
Yes, some. It depends, is the answer. So some women can have vaginal orgasms, some women can have clitoral orgasms, some women can have both, and some women can have neither. So yeah, it depends.
Some women can have neither.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. That's one of the things that people come in for. Yeah. And you'd be surprised. I mean, there's 25-year-olds, there's 45-year-olds, there's 65-year-olds that come in and say, I've never had an orgasm. And my partner may or may not know. It depends. They've been faking it, or they just don't even know. But if somebody comes in and says, I'm not sure if it's happened, it's probably not happened. Yeah.
Okay. That's so interesting. And again, you also see couples of, you see heterosexual, homosexual, you see all genders. And let's talk a little bit though about how much is too much. Is there such a thing? Too much sex, too much masturbation. I know in our episode, you did talk about sometimes that's a red flag. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So again, I'm sex positive, which means I encourage sex. I like healthy sexuality. But my other hat that I sometimes wear is compulsion, sexual compulsion, or also called sex addiction. We start to see that come into play when it has actually the same criteria that any addiction has. So there's an impulsivity, there's a compulsivity. The person tends to be pursuing sex even when people around them have asked them to stop. There's typically a need for greater and greater stimulation. So that might look like if they're watching a lot of porn, it goes to the more, to increasingly more
explicit.
Let's say explicit porn. Yeah. Or, outside of their traditional erotic template, like what they're normally drawn to. So we start seeing a progression. So when it starts looking like that, and then as far as masturbation, again, I'm okay with masturbation. I think it's a healthy part of relationship to self. But, I sometimes will see guys and they are masturbating all day long. Like it'll be happening, for hours at a time to the point of injury, and it's coupled with porn. So that has its own psychological ramifications. But when it starts getting in the way of other priorities, that's another criteria, right? Like you're missing work, or you're maybe lying and calling in to work so that you can go hook up with somebody, or, because it can be solo sex or partner sex that's problematic in presentation. Right. Yeah.
So you counsel both partners. If there's a sexual addiction, you'll counsel the individual who has the addiction, as well as not sure what to call the
no. So there's the partner and the addict. Right. No. So I do either one or the other. I do see both people, but not in the same unit. So I'll see the partner one, partner two, or I will see the couple.
Okay.
That said, also sometimes after we go through this process of disclosure, I will see the couple then going forward. If I've just seen, for example, like one of the parties. Yeah, it's a little complicated, but because there's so many secrets, and because there's inherently been deception, it's too tricky to see both partners in the same unit while all that's getting unpacked. So I don't do that.
Right. You had talked about disclosure and how you see one, another therapist sees another, and then you all the whole process, which sounds
Yeah.
really intense, but very helpful to the couple
Yes.
if they want to stay together.
Yes. Well, regardless, actually,
Okay.
I think it's cathartic for them, regardless of whether they stay together. Yeah.
And you talk about it, sexual addiction being like, it's okay to have great sex or to have a lot of sex. However, when does it become like too much? So you had said if it's risk taking, if there's lying involved. You also mentioned in our episode erectile dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
That.
So erectile, that isn't necessarily correlative with sex addiction. However, it does when I start to see that. That's a presentation that typically would be somebody in their 20s comes in, right? If a guy in his 20s comes in with erectile dysfunction, I'm going to ask, how much porn are you watching? Because the porn eventually often leads to the erectile dysfunction, for a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. If I see erectile dysfunction in a 60-year-old man, it's likely part of the aging. It might be part of their medication, heart stuff, anything that affects blood pressure. But it's different. So I'm curious about what they're doing and how often they're doing it and what are they thinking about, what's prompting them to do it. Like, we just kind of unpack it and look at it.
Now, on my Instagram this week, Mantra Mondays, I believe we posted about this quote that you told us in the episode. It was about your age, and that like a 40-year-old woman's body, even though it changes, it's the mind that changes more than the body in terms of sex drive. I found that fascinating because a lot of times women claim, oh, I lost my sex drive, but you're saying it's a lot about the mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, when people come in through the door of sex therapy, I'm always looking at, okay, first of all, if it's a functional problem, meaning something's not working like it used to or like you want it to, is there a medical issue to this? In which case, go get checked out by your urologist, go get checked out by your gynecologist, like do that first. Usually then they get kicked back and they say, nope, it's not medical, it's psychological. Okay, so then what is that? What is in that? Well, so much, this is your biggest sex organ, right? It's like so much of what turns you on, so much of what you decide pleases you is about your mind. It's about, what you've decided. It's how you've framed it. It's how you've, some of it's just like, say smell, for example, maybe you hate bad smells, but many things within the mind are like optional. They're how you choose to see it, So working from that perspective, that's kind of where we start, is understanding sort of what's in the mind.
Right, because we were saying you can have all the sex toys, all the lube, you can have the hotel room, but if you don't have your mind, the foreplay of the mind, it's not going to be a good night.
Right.
Just
right. Because you could psych yourself out, even with Viagra in your system. You could psych yourself out; it won't work. I find with Viagra initially, it works because there's an expectancy component, right? Like people are like, oh, this is going to work. But it's placebo a little bit. It does have, but if your mind is really like, it will override that eventually. I hate to tell anybody that because they're going to think it's not going to work. But if you're too stressed out, then
if you're
it'll override it.
It's not going to work no matter what.
Yep.
Like that's why we're here tonight. We're to learn about the mind and how it can help you and transform your sex life. So I do want to remind our live audience that if you have questions, you can put it in the chat. Or you can send them to me privately if you would like. I can read them out to Jenn if you'd prefer to be anonymous. I'll know who you are, but don't worry, there's no judgment. Or you can just share them in the chat as we go along. Okay, we are ready for some activities with you. And the first one, you're going to share the screen. We're going to go through to find out our sexual temperament. And remember, this is not like you're this, you're that. It's you working on yourself tonight, learning about yourself, and Jenn guiding us along the way. And nothing needs to be shouted out like, oh, I scored high, woohoo. Like go through.
Okay, so let me give a little bit of
background.
Preparation. Yeah. So this comes from that Come As You Are book that I love. I don't have a copy here, but anyway, it's wonderful. And she is borrowing this from clinical work that from other researchers that came before from the Kinsey Institute. But it's all about the idea that there's this dual control model. So often we think of sex and sexuality as like either it's a yes or a no. And if you can uncouple that, which is what we're going to try to do tonight, and look at it as two separate things, there's dual controls. There's inhibition and there's excitation, and they are separate, and they both matter a whole lot, and they are both unique. And so the same person, there's high, medium, and low, and that's what we're going to figure out where you fit, so that you can then go, oh, okay, this is how I could better my personal sex life. So, okay, I'm going to pull this up on my screen. Let's see.
So everyone just needs a pen or right, and a piece of paper.
Yeah. So grab a piece of paper. You're gonna first of all, you're just gonna score.
Our people who are watching live stream can do this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna share. Let's see. Okay. So can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna start with inhibitors. So I want you to read through these and score yourself.
Okay, so if people are just listening, I'm going to read them. Is that okay?
Sure. And these are all on a scale of 0 to 4, 0 being not like me at all, and 4 being exactly like me.
So the first one is, unless things are just right, it is difficult for me to become sexually aroused. The second one, when I am sexually aroused, the slightest thing can turn me off. I have to trust a partner to become fully aroused. If I am worried about taking too long to become aroused or to orgasm, this can interfere with my arousal. Sometimes I feel so shy or self-conscious during sex that I cannot become fully aroused. So once you finish, you total it out of 20. Oh, is there one more?
Yeah, but
No.
Just not for this section. This is it.
Yeah. That's right. You're right. So when people are ready, maybe they can just raise their hands so we're not waiting. Let me just see. Oh, I can't go to. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So just hold on to that score for a minute, and then we're going to take another quick thing. And this is excitation. So this is what she calls accelerators. So.
Okay, so again, the scale is not at all like me, 1, not much like me, 2, somewhat like me, 3, a lot like me, and 4, exactly like me. So often, just how someone smells can be a turn on. Seeing my partner doing something that shows their talent or intelligence, or watching them interacting well with others, can make me very sexually aroused. Having sex in a different setting than usual is a real turn on for me.
Hotels.
Yeah. Obviously that couple the other night, yes. When I think about someone I find sexually attractive, or when I fantasize about sex, I easily become sexually aroused.
Scroll up here.
And certain hormonal changes, example, my menstrual cycle, definitely increase my sexual arousal. And last, I get very turned on when someone wants me sexually. And again, you're going to score, add it up and score yourself.
And I would say for any of the men taking this or male identified, you're going to remove that second to last question about hormonal changes, and you're going to total out of 20. So all of the categories, you'll just bump it down 4.
Oh, I was going to say if they remove it, then they have they get an advantage. Mm-hmm. So good, it's out of 20. Okay.
Yes.
That wouldn't be fair.
All the totals change a little bit.
Okay. So let's take a look at results, not your results, but.
So yeah, total them up, and then we're going to look for a snapshot here of the scoring. So this is the first one, the inhibition. So inhibition thinking, so the way Nagoski talks about it is accelerators or brakes. So accelerators are things that are go, yes, I want this. You're in a more desirous state. You're kind of turned on, you're excited. Whereas brakes, obviously you're like, no thanks, or that just turned me off, or that was really agitating, or I feel resistant. So let's start with, this is the brakes, this is inhibition. So if you have low cis, that's how she refers to it, you're not so sensitive. You actually don't get terribly distracted. You're not super shy. You find that, most situations you can be like, ooh, I'm kind of turned on here. Like, ooh, you can find something to turn you on, something that's interesting or arousing. That's only about 15% of women. So hold on to that, because if you think about why. Medium. So in this, you're right in the middle. This is where most women will fall. That there's excitement about new situations, but risk and novel situations can sometimes be like, how safe am I? Do I know this person? What time do I have to get up in the morning? It's all those things that are about your stress, as well as the actual physical partner and circumstances. More familiarity lowers inhibition for some women. Novelty lowers it or raises it for others. So think of it as your brakes. If you're high cis, this is a lot of who I see in my sex therapy office. You're pretty sensitive for all kinds of reasons. You don't trust as easily. Relaxation is hard. If your partner is quicker than you are to reach arousal and orgasm, you can't get there, and you might psych yourself out. So that's highly correlative with sexual problems. Does that make sense?
But that's not to say if someone scored a 14 tonight that they should come see you. It's just something to look at.
Right, exactly. Oh yeah, it's just information. This is all just information, and they're all normal, right? It's like you just might need to know that your break is a little bit more sensitive. And so maybe if with this information, you can, first of all, understand it yourself, and then share it with your partner about ways. That's sort of the next chapter of like how we work then in sex therapy is, okay, if you know that you tend to be high cis, that you have a lot of breaks, maybe you're really susceptible to stress, maybe you have thin walls at your house and you're worried your kids can hear you, right? Or maybe you're more self-conscious of your body, and you're like, I don't want to have sex in the daylight. Or it can be anything. Maybe you think you smell funny. I've heard it all. Like why I don't want to have sex from people, right? So that is just you tend to be higher cis. So we start looking at what those are, and that'll be the next exercise we do, and how to then address some of those. Okay. So, now shifting to SES, SES. So think of E as excitation. So these are your accelerators. These are the things that are more likely to turn you on, or things, are you geared towards easier arousal? So low SES is that you're not so sensitive. Like this is on the plus side. So you don't get a lot of cues from the world. You don't walk through the world kind of like, ooh, I feel kind of like today. You need usually more time to be aroused. You need more safety to be aroused. But on the plus side, there just isn't a lot of things that signal sexuality to you. So medium, again, right in the middle. It's easier for you to tune into sexual stimulation. In situations of low romance or eroticism, it's pretty challenging for you to move your attention to sexual things. So if you've got competing priorities like, say, caretaking, or a big exam, or other things, you might be like, So part of that's like what kind of hits that, and that's 70% of women. So the majority of women fall right in that medium. High cis. So those women are both usually easy to self-stimulate as well as partner stimulate. They're just turned on a lot. They're in the world, like feeling like oftentimes they're sensitive, all their senses are lit up. So they notice beauty. They're aware of how they're dressing and what that communicates to the world. They don't, they're just more, it's easier for them to find things that are delightful. And that's about 16%.
I wanted to leave it open. If anyone has any questions specifically about that, you can type it in the chat that you'd like to ask Jenn. And if not, I hope that provided some insight for everybody. And I wanted now go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this is so, I loved that she broke it out this way, and it's so helpful. I think I teach human sexuality, and this comes up, and we have to like kind of unpack it a little bit. So are you surprised, I guess, without divulging, what your scoring is anybody surprised by their scoring? Or do you feel like, wait, what? And you might be medium on one or high on one and low on the other. Vanessa?
Because I love to participate. I feel like is there also a distinction between how you perceive yourself and what is actual? Because in the numbers, I feel like I scored one way, but then reading the descriptions, I feel like I aligned with something else.
Interesting.
So not that far, but I did feel like maybe I'm a little bit more this than that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that normal? Everything's normal. I know. I don't have to ask that question. Everything's normal.
Well, could it be that her score was like on the lower end or on the higher end?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you after, Karen.
Okay.
Taking notes.
Yeah, my husband's on the call. Well, maybe you should have your partner do it. Answer the questions. Sorry, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I mean, and it can change, but like, it's again, it's so context specific in terms of what's going on in your life. Like you might have answered this very differently in your 20s than in your 40s. What are your priorities? What is your relationship to your body? How much sleep are you getting? Like it matters. So,
and your state, like you said, your stage of life, like if you have your kids, like you said, right next door, and then you're an empty nester, all those types of things.
Yep.
I suppose that's a real player is your age and how this is described, though, right? Because the way it's describing low, medium, high, whatever that's relative to each person, probably is a huge difference between a 16-year-old and a 60-year-old.
Yes.
On how that would read to them. I mean, and that's just life, right? I mean,
well, and yes, there's more hormonal things happening at 16 than at 60, but there's different hormonal things, right? The 60-year-old woman, well, let's say the 50-year-old woman who's right around menopause is having a whole situation that the 16-year-old is not. But the 60-year-old is also prioritizing different things at that stage of life. The 50 or 60-year-old, woman might have a career that takes priority, or might be doing, whatever. There's just other things in their life that are more important. The 16-year-old can't really see beyond their sex drive. They usually are.
Oh, you were
just
going to say something else there, Jenn.
bouncing little hormones. So they're not having the full balance of all the other things in life, although they are balancing social interactions and they are trying to sort out how to have interpersonal relationships, so that's happening simultaneously too. And that interferes. That's why psychologically it interferes. That might be one of your breaks. If you're scared of your peers and you don't know how to have conversations and you worry that, you might be awkward, that's a big break.
Right.
If you feel like you're socially accepted and you feel like you're attractive and you have had a very successful social career, that might be an accelerator for you, So it's just kind of good. It's all just information.
It's great information. We have a question. So an intuitive is someone who's very, very intuitive and with what's around them, very sensitive to what they read around them. So the question is, do intuitives tend to be more sensitive sexually as well? I'm not sure if you can answer that, but
I would say, well, kind of in that category of more like highly sensitive people, or people that are just more, in generally more intuitive, I guess is probably where that's coming from. I would say both could be true, because they're so sensitive, they might be hyper aware of things that would cause breaks, right? Again, like sound. I got to get up in the morning, but like in terms of sensory stuff, yeah, can people hear me? What's your mood? I'm playing off your mood. If you seem kind of weird, then I'm not really in the mood, so I could see how it could kick in the brakes. If they have a good relationship to self in the world, it might be a benefit in terms of being really highly sensual, because again, they might really enjoy taste. They might, because your senses are where it's at, right? That's what's informing this. They might love good cologne or perfume. They might love the way it sounds to hear their partner moan. It's like, think about all the sensory stuff that's like, ooh, that could really turn you on if you're that kind of person. Or it could be like, that's too much information, I'm gonna shut down. So I could see it going either way.
Well, let's talk about the brakes and the accelerators now.
Okay.
Because you and I talked about there's so many brakes. That's easy. That's so easy. I mean, we can even do a popcorn session here where people just type in the chat.
Yeah.
What would you say? And then I thought we could talk about the accelerators and the breakout rooms. Is that okay? So
sure.
A break would be what? Like what stops you from being sexual? Okay. So if we can just have our Zoom audience just type in the chat, what are some breaks? It doesn't necessarily have to be for you personally. I was brainstorming with you the other day and just thinking about stress. Obviously, maybe Lauren,
stress is a big one for sure. And whatever stress means to you, because stress is different.
Lack of sleep. Hygiene.
Yes.
And we were talking about this. It was funny because some people like clean, some people like dirty. So some people like wet. Nutrition, if you're hungry, if you just don't feel good in that way, if you don't feel healthy. We have rushed, definitely rushed. Relationship.
And again, it's not across the board, it's what happens to hit that person, because again, like a quickie can be really hot for some people, right? It's like
That's right.
when that's all the time you got, and the kids are out on a walk with the babysitter or something, and you've got 30 minutes, that's what you've got. For other people, they need it to be slow, and they need to build to get there, and they need safety, and they need so it just depends.
And we have a few people saying kids. Absolutely.
Yes.
Those kids.
I don't know if anybody's actually ever said kids are an accelerator.
Right.
I don't think that's
how it all started. That was the problem.
Yes, we had the sex to have the kids, and then the kids come and they ruin it.
No one told me that at school.
But also your partner, you may have some issues with your partner that you just need to work out first.
Yeah, because there's so much going on for you in your own head with your, like I said, with your body, with your environment, with your work, stress, whatever. There's all of that. And then there's your partner, right? So how are you relating to your partner? Are they approaching you in a way that you like? Do they smell good? Have you had good interactions with them recently, or not so much? Like if you had a fight in the morning, some people are like, no, we need to make up before we can be sexual. And some people are like, if we have sex, then we've made up.
That's make-up sex, right?
Yeah. So it's knowing yourself and understanding what your situation is, and then also your partner. I think both are really important. Yeah.
So we're going to go into breakout rooms. I know we don't have a ton of people here, but enough. I'd like to put the men together. They'll have fun in their own little breakout room. I can't wait to hear what accelerators they come up with.
I've got something I need to catch up with you.
You're muted,
with
Lauren.
So we can sort that.
You're muted.
Do you want to keep the other 5 together or make 2 rooms?
I think we'll do 2 rooms.
Okay.
Eric, can I just say
Then-
Eric's putting me off eating that pizza right now. I mean, you're
Okay.
really, you're not helping my accelerator there, Eric.
So I have a question. Can you see you won't be able to see the screen once you're in breakout, right? So if I share,
Right.
And by the way, the breakout rooms are not recorded. Okay. So
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so then I'm just going to prime you with a verbal guidance of what you're going to do. Okay, so what the next part will be what we call like sexy contacts, and that's I want you to just recount, like maybe take a minute and jot a few things down, but think of a positive experience that you've had sexually, and describe it initially. Just describe it with as many details as you can. Like, was it time? Was it place? Who was the person? Like, what was it that made it so great for you? And then start to break it down. So she's got it broken out into things like body image, mood, like basically what was your headspace when that happened? What was all the physical stuff? Did they smell good? Did they, were you feeling really stoked about yourself? Like what was going on in your head? And then on the other side okay, so like relationship things would be like trust. How much did you trust this person? Did you even know them that well? And does that matter to you? Emotional connection. Did you feel desired? Things like that. So where was it? How was it? Why was it good? Why was it not good? Or just, let's stick to just positive on this one. Why was it good? So understand that, because that'll help inform sort of what your accelerators look like.
Okay. Great. Okay, Lauren, and then Jen and I will stay and talk about accelerators too. Those.
Okay. I just have to fix one thing.
Okay.
And then it will be great. Let's see.
We'll see you back in a little bit.
Yep. How long would you like, love?
Let's just do 5 minutes.
5 minutes. You got it.
We'll just
All right,
rush.
everybody, have a good time.
How'd you go into a breakout room? Sorry.
What's gonna happen is I'm gonna hit the button and you're gonna get a little note across your screen that says enter breakout room. So just click it and then off you go.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Good.
And Jen, you and I will stay here. So let's wait till everyone leaves. Okay. So we're going to talk about accelerators here. So you said to first think about an experience, a good time that we had. And then can you repeat that? Then go through what was it that created that?
Yeah. So think about all the parts of that, maybe guided by your senses. So do you remember, sight, smell, taste, touch? What was it about that night? Was it a particular holiday or maybe special occasion? Was it the location that contributed to it? Was it what you wore? Was it how the partner approached you? What made it a successful event for you? Like all those, if you start to break it down, it was like, it's not just because that person was such a good lover. It was probably like you were a good lover that night, and why? Yeah, because that's helpful information to understand sort of what inclines you toward that.
Well, I think without like telling the world about my my adventures in sex, I think that even just from talking with my friends that are in the same stage of life as me, it's just funny. Sometimes we're empty nesters now, and sometimes I get that question, oh, are you having sex in every single room and on every single table? I'm like, no. No, but there is that definite feeling of, it's funny because sometimes I'll be like, no, wait, there's someone in the other room. But then I'm like, no, wait, they're not there actually.
Right.
So that's gone, that's removed, which is huge, especially before we had people saying kids, having the kids in the other room and not maybe having the lock on the door. Or let's say I grew up, I don't want to embarrass my parents, but I just remember going into the room at night when I was scared and crawling into bed with them. But when the door was locked, I was like, why aren't they letting me in? And as I got older, I realized, oh, I know why. But that the lock or the,
yes, Well, and that seems like so obvious, but like you'd be surprised at how many people don't have locks on their doors. And I'm like, what, you're playing with fire here. Because oftentimes that comes up as a break for one person, at least, it's like they could hear us or they could walk in on us. And it's just like, yeah, forget it. You can't ever really relax. And, that's hard. That's hard to achieve.
Some people like that adventure.
Yes. Some people do like that adventure. Yes. Yeah. For some people, the risk makes it more intriguing. It makes it more thrilling. And not just with kids. I mean, not with their kids per se, but like that might be getting handsy at like the movie theater, or when you're 15.
Right. Or what's the Mile High Club? Is that
on the airplane? Yeah. Yeah.
Exciting. I mean, I don't know. I've not done it, but maybe it's good to try. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely stress, definitely the kids, but those are blocks. So accelerators then would be having, I just want to understand this better, having a safe place.
But it's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. So it could be, like some women tell me that they really, first of all, like, I don't know. I don't have any, all I have is brakes. I don't have any accelerators. And I'm like, okay, yes, you do. So let's not just go to like what turns you on. Let's start more basic with like what just primes you to feel generally in a place of like maybe open to it, So that could be like when you're rested. That might be what time of day. Like, are you are you a morning person or an evening person or a midday, like afternoon delight kind of person? Yeah. Do you really like scent? And if so, do you like, maybe you wear a perfume that you really like for yourself, and or maybe you buy a perfume or cologne for your partner, like what else? Do you like, I mean, there's a million starter of it. Do you like to go and have a really nice meal out together that do you need to feel connected first? Maybe a glass of wine, like it just kind of depends on what is it that puts you in a space that's more inclined. Do you want your partner to be really complimentary to you, to make you feel desired?
Well, that also goes with, and I'm forgetting the author, but love language. Do you know?
Oh yeah, the love languages. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My love language is service. So I love when my husband helps out and helps, when he comes home and empties the dishwasher and cleans up and I'm like, oh, let's go upstairs.
Right? Isn't that funny?
It is
right.
Funny.
It's like, but it shows that he cares, and that communicates something, and it, shifts your system. Yes. My love language is gifts. So
I heard that. Yes. So you get a lot of gifts. I should switch to gifts. I like that. I should just sell him gifts.
And gifts can be big or small, like it could be like, oh, like you got it first and you made me a latte, or it could be a really nice piece of jewelry, or just like you thought of me, you brought me something, or you wrote me a little note or something, but it just depends. And so having the love languages book actually is a great place to start, because if you can give that information to your partner, then they know what better primes you. What are your accelerators? Okay.
Well, I'm not sure about our timing, Lauren.
They're coming in about 2 seconds.
Okay. So I did want to ask, and we can ask as they come in. Sometimes couples, especially, that have been married a long time, and they're so used to their sex life being the same, it's just the same. They may want to try something different, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So we were just finishing our conversation for those that came back, because we were talking about accelerators as well. So I wanted to, who was in a room? Vanessa, you were in a room with? She was in a room
with me.
Tennis. Okay. And I know it's just the two of you, and I know it was private, so I'm not asking you to divulge, but what were some accelerators that you guys brainstormed in general?
I think Tanis and I were on the same page and agreed with a lot of the circumstances surrounding our best experiences were lined up. We also felt that emotionally we needed to be connected to our partners in order to connect physically. We both have had partners for a very long time. So we did note, that there are ebbs and flows of desire and availability and, and then Tanis, if you want to elaborate on your sensitivities, up to you. But because you are so highly tuned in, I'll hand it over to you.
So we also talked about the fact that what you said about intuitives would definitely ring true. I think that, because of the sensitivities, an example like the smell can either be really good or really bad. Because I'm sensitive, that's a higher one way or the other, right? So it just means there's
it
more
heightens that area.
And I'm also clairsentient, which is also feeling. So that would include the physical touch too, right? So it could be really good or really bad, depending. So yeah, we kind of talked about that piece.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Heidi, you were in a room with
Emily.
Emily.
With me, but somehow I got renamed Vanessa.
That's okay. We love Vanessa. We can have lots of Vanessas here. But thank you for joining us, Emily. Thank you. So how is your room, Heidi and Emily?
Emily, why don't you start?
Okay. I think we had similar views. I think one thing that Heidi said, which I actually resonated with, was, well, one, we both feeling desired, obviously, is a big one for, well, not obviously, but is a big one for both of us. And then Heidi also mentioned sort of that being with someone that feels manly and strong and almost maybe even protective in a way. And I added that. Heidi didn't say that, but and then, for me, I've been married a long time, but newness is what was always good for me, that obviously I don't have anymore. And smell is a huge one for me. Both, can be a turn on and a turn off.
Turn off.
So the novelty piece comes up a lot, that newness.
Yeah.
And if you're in a longer term relationship, you have to get a little more creative about novelty. How, maybe it's a new location, like Karen said, maybe it's a different room or a different table than you've ever had sex on before. But it can also be, maybe you wear special lingerie, or maybe you put on, I don't know. There's just, you introduce different elements. Maybe you do role playing, maybe, just one little thing, the brain goes, what's that? Ooh,
yeah.
I
think I feel like I've tried everything, but yeah. Sounds good.
Well, you and I were talking about that as everyone was coming in, that couples that are in a long relationship, you want to spice it up a little bit and be comfortable together doing that. And I think the key is communication and telling your partner that, okay, boys, your turn. I can't wait to hear this.
Well, we've covered a lot of subjects. So we've had a couple of decelerators because Charlie came out playing volleyball right in front of me on FaceTime with her friends. So that ticked kids right off the bat. I think the way Eric eats his food is really bugging me. We're not meeting up tonight, Eric. You're not getting it.
Okay. What are some accelerators?
We talked about emotional connections and trust. We talked about feeling comfortable and sometimes like being on vacations, that overall kind of getting along in a good way and having a nice time rather than stress, forgetting the stresses, right? Phil said that didn't mean anything to him. He just wanted to go straight in for the sex. But So we disagreed a little bit on that.
That's an English thing.
Yeah.
Just,
And so it was kind of like that. The kids we agreed on was a bit of, so, not so much a decelerator for me, but, personally, they just, are something else that you have to worry about or be concerned about. Right, Phil? What do you think?
Yeah, kids are a decelerator. I wanted to, we were going to talk and my daughter's right there in front of me playing volleyball, pulling faces. I'm like, yeah, there you go. I can't really talk now, but I can, but I'll just embarrass her instead. Yeah, kids, we're all uncomfortable.
Thank you for sharing that. I know Jen and I also talked about the book Love Languages and how her language is gifts. She likes receiving gifts, and mine is service. I like when my partner cleans up, and because I'm not the best cleaner, so I do like when he does that. And
I'm going to take the garbage out. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not home, so it doesn't mean anything, sweetie. But
no, but you're coming. You said you were going to be home tomorrow.
Yeah,
okay.
I tried the cleaning bit, and then Vanessa cleaned again after me, so that didn't work.
Okay. Next time we're not inviting our spouses on. No.
It's probably only fair if everyone's spouse or boyfriend comes on.
Yes, everyone's partner. Absolutely. Well, there's always a next time on Grateful Goddesses. Okay. So Jenn, if people want to reach out to you for help, I know that you work in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara location, but how can they connect with you?
Sure. They can find me on Instagram at Riviera_therapy or on Facebook at just Riviera Therapy would be great. And my website is rivieratherapy.com.
And you were telling me too that there's upcoming workshops and they can find out about all of those on your website, correct?
Yeah, just shoot me an email. They're still in the works, but yeah, you can, if you want to be on my list for future things related to sex and sexuality, let me know.
And stay tuned to listen in, or not stay tuned, go back and listen to our recorded episode because we really go into detail about so many other aspects of sexuality and gender. And we're doing a giveaway. So my trusty lube is here. Because it's always good, right? Lube is always good to have. So I'm going to give away two. And are we ready, Lauren, to pull? And by the way, if you're watching on Facebook and you want to be part of this, join in on the live audience and you can be part of the giveaways. What?
Don't
Eric?
use it all up without me, honey.
Okay.
All right. So
I use it in my hair. It's a good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a good one.
Multitask lube. Is that sanitizer as well? Does that protect you from COVID?
Who's the first winner?
The first winner is Phil.
Phil, you know what? The lube is called BioTab 7.
BioTab 7. I'm in.
All right. And who else wins the lube?
The other lube is going to Emily.
Emily, I will send it to you. I will get your address from Vanessa, right? Okay. Yeah. Yay. And yes, you can actually, I was told, I've been doing it. You can use it in your hair. Look at my hair is not frizzy because it's and it
like something about Mary.
It doesn't smell. It's good. We're having some other people join us. I think they just came a little bit too late.
I think they thought that it started at 6 instead of 5. So that's okay.
They just came on as you were putting lube in your hair. That's perfect timing.
Well, I apologize to our viewers coming on now. Okay, so you can listen to the recorded episode that's on Facebook. It would be on Jen's Facebook as well as mine.
Inter-party disagreements among Democrats, first about what was in the legislation.
We're going to mute that. All right, let's raise our mugs. Again, I have my little travel mug. Do more what makes you happy. And I hope that involves lube. Make yourself happy with your partner. Yay. Cheers.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you for joining us on Grateful Goddesses TV, and we'll see you next week. Thank you to my future goddesses,
thank you.
Heidi, Vanessa, and Candace, for joining us tonight. And thank you, gentlemen, for having the courage to join us as well.
Thank you for the loop.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Recording stopped.